Welcome to the Sparky Coach podcast. This platform was built by Sparkies for Sparkies. We simply exist to make business owners more profitable, or businesses more profitable and more predictable. So we want to work with people that work hard because we love working hard too, that work smart because you got to be on top of the business, people that are kind because no one likes a dickhead. Am I right? People who want results because that's what we're here for, right? And people who want to be part of a like-minded community. So if you're interested in hearing more about the platform, please reach out and enjoy the podcast. Sparky Coach Pod, we are answering the age-old question, can you make money at $120 an hour? Such an unbelievably generic question that has multiple answers across multiple facets. And I think there's so much propaganda and noise about this whole topic and this whole subject. And essentially, if you're buying labor materials and selling it at a profit, that's what you need to know. You need to know what you're buying your labor and materials for so you can add a margin and then make some money. For some of you, 120 is at a loss. And for others of you, 120 is at a 30% profit margin. Now, that's a pretty, I'm going to say, I sit with a lot of numbers across a lot of people, and there's a market realm. If you don't believe me, there's a market realm. Go and buy coffee and tell me how much you're going to pay for that coffee. $5, $6 maybe, $10 in the city, not 20. You know, you'll pay so much, but not too much. And there's a point where your price could exceed market reason and you could start losing work. Now, what's worse than losing work? Losing money. What's worse than losing work for being too expensive? Losing money for being too cheap. So you really have to know where you sit in the realm of things, and we can help you with that. I'd say that's our skill set. That's a major thing. And ask anyone, read our Google reviews. It's numbers. So I feel really qualified to talk on this. That and my certificate 3 in electro technology really carry me home on this one. Yeah, I don't have a data license. I never got a data license. Hey, that's pretty bad. Like, I think what happened was in TAFE, you meant to apply for it, and it was irrelevant to me at that point. And then by the time I went to apply for it, they changed the module.
Oh, so yeah, your module wasn't.
And by that time, we had staff, and I was like, well, they've got one, so we'll just roll into that one. So probably offending a lot of people as I'm talking here. But hey, apply for your stuff as it comes through. Be organized and diligent and disciplined. But
and renew as well. Don't let them lapse.
Well. Yeah. So man, look, you said something funny to me yesterday. I can't remember what you said about, like, I said, I want to put on this topic. Can you make money at 120? And you were like, yeah, sometimes. And it's true. So what do you think? Where's your head go straight to?
First thing I think of is, like, you can make money at any dollar value. It's just what are the costs inputted to affect that sale price. So, you know, you can make money on a $50 t-shirt and you can lose money on a $50 t-shirt. So it's like, I think the focus often is too much on the sale price as opposed to how we got to that price. And I think obviously that's where I think we I don't want to say push, but like we're well versed in that area. But the first thing that comes to mind is, like, how'd you get there? That is literally the first thing I think of. Like, well, so how did you get to that figure? A common response is, that's what the bloke down the road told me to charge, or that's what my boss used to charge, or that's what Jimmy told me to charge. And if you listen to our pod fairly often, probably wouldn't be trusting Jimmy, even though Jimmy is a ripping dude. Friday afternoon to Sunday.
Yeah, a ripping dude who rips too many cones. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, so, that's my immediate thought to answer your question is, well, how did you get there? And that, I think, underlies the whole, I guess, point of being in business, or the whole fundamental of being in business. Like, if you don't know how you got there, that's probably the concern.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because if you look at what is an hourly rate in a nutshell, right? It's a combination of a wage component, a super component, an overhead per billable resource per hour, which ranges from $20 to $70. So it's like someone's break even can be 80 and someone's break even can be 140. So you really need to know what your break even is. You need to know what components can chop and change to adjust that break even too. So, essentially, if you're operating by yourself and you did one of these rates calculators, you will find yourself really, really high on the overhead per billable resource because you are shouldering the whole weight of the operating expenses and the admin expenses. And it's an unbearable weight to carry. You carry that for too long, you probably 9 times out of 10 are better off going on wages at that point. That you need to know you have to get out of that season unless you're in the 10%, that 1 in 10, you really want to know that. So what is an hourly rate? So obviously the only thing that gives the rate context is how many hours you're getting. So great example, my rate's $500 an hour. Cool, I got 1 hour in today. So I got $500 for the day, and insert whatever reason why. I was traveling, that's all I could fit in. I had to do this, I did that, whatever. So let's just say hypothetically, across the day I made $500. You need to stop. I think we need to stop looking at things in a hourly component and more like a net profit component. What was the net profit on that job? What was the net profit on that month? What was the gross profit on that job? What was the gross profit on that month? And how can I adjust my labor efficiency to adjust the gross profit? And how can I adjust my operating efficiency to increase my net profit? So what gives the hourly rate context? How many hours you're getting in gives a context. What you can on cost from there, in terms of, are you selling materials at a huge margin? Are you on costing your digger at a huge margin? And what other thing gives the rate context? What is the profit margin on that rate? Is it 20% or is it negative 10%? That gives it context. And what was the profit margin across the whole job? There is so much context here. And what was the opportunity of that job? So let's say I skinned the cat and my labor rate. Let's say, when I say opportunity, I mean this. Let's say I get an opportunity for a pub renovation. That pub renovation goes, I need you to be at X rate. Let's call it $100 for market research. And I'm like, oh no, man, I charge $120 an hour. I'm like, oh, you can be so high and mighty about a rate. And then, but let's reverse engineer it. Let's just say, okay, sweet. Let's say I've got 12 staff members and I'm in the office full time. I can delete myself. I can volunteer as tribute to the company, right? Because if I make 600 grand or 700 grand a year, the correct answer is 700. The right answer is both are good, thanks. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll take, I gave you the option. Of course, you're going to choose that. But most of us would just choose, hey, you know what? I don't want to argue. I'm happy with that one. So whether or not you insert your market wage into that rate component is kind of relevant to the holistic conversation. So let's just say I volunteer as tribute, Hunger Games style, to the company. So it takes out my 120, 130 grand wage. I can now on cost a rate. So my 15% margin rate is here. Let's call it $100 now for this context. This job actually enables me to put 1, 2, 3 apprentices on because that job is going to take a training 2 apprentices for a year. So those 2 apprentices have dropped my overhead because they've come in to shoulder the weight of the hours across the company, which is a huge play, Not only are you, apprentices are unbelievable for your calculator when they're billable. They are diabolical for your calculator when they're not billable. If you've got an apprentice on the Rogue Traders philosophy, the Rogue Traders philosophy, see you, watching me, watching you. Do you have a crush on Nat Bass? Not my type, but what do you think?
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, cool. I mean, if you're listening, Nat, I mean, I'm married, but if something happened, call Cam. So anyway, apprentices can come, if they're just watching you do something, or there's 2 of them watching someone do something, diabolical to your net
tools
profit.
Around in a circle.
Yeah, and it's I said pliers, not 10 steps. So anyway, when they're used effectively, incredible for both your overhead per billable resource and also the future of your company.
Yeah.
The future, you're training someone up, your ways, your style, your communication, your ethos, your clients, your manholes, your second door from the left houses the transformer that controls that thing 2 doors down. This, you just know stuff about your company. Amazing. So let's just say I skin the cat at 15% margin across my TAA team, a tradie apprentice team, which can look holistically. You could look at that $90 a person, $100 a person, $85 a person. It's kind of irrelevant how you look at it. To the relevance is the net profit across the week, month, job. That's the relevance, not across the I charge this and my biceps this big and my penis grew an inch when I did this. Like, you need to calm down. CTFD. Calm the F down, right? So, but what I want to say is if that 15% margin across the rate also allows me to sell a whole bunch of materials at a 30% margin, 40% margin, 20% margin. If you reverse engineer that materials margin back on top of that rate, hey, that 15 or 10 or 15% rate just went to 25, 30% or 22%. I think we'd all agree, holistically, a really, really healthy metric and one of the Sparky Coach key components or key goals or key the vision we have is that you would achieve a market wage with a business net profit of 20%. That's an incredibly healthy goal to achieve, right? Can you achieve more than that? Of course, that's the goal, right? But if you achieve less than that, it's probably business might not be worth doing at a certain point. But if your revenue is 5 mil and you're making 20%, let's say it's $1 million, do you really care if your market wage of 120 is on top of that or not? Like, yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be the icing on the cake. Maybe not even the icing on the cake. Maybe it's like the Kit Kat on top of the cake. Like, it's a nicety on a nicety. It's a double nicety. Like, it's not even a nice to have. It's like a luxury. It's like, I would take, do you want 800 grand this year, 1 million or 1.2? The answer is yes. Like, you know what I mean? The answer is like, CC, I'll have what she's having. So yeah, I'm really passionate about this because I think I was watching something and there's people with like, I think we're so infiltrated with noise that there's people going, oh, I charge this and I charge that. And wait, it's irrelevant what you charge. I saw one guy pop up on an ad and he was saying, oh, you can get $500 an hour or $250 an hour. He said 500, but let's say it's 250. Let's halve it. He also said he had 50 staff and 57 subcontractors, right? So let's just say there's 107 staff. Like, you're using subbies as employees. Let's say we halve that. Let's say there's 50 staff and he's charging $250 an hour, right? He's got, I did $1 million months. I'm like, cool. Well, your $250 an hour across 50 staff, which is half of what you said, at 146 hours per month is a revenue of $1.8 million excluding materials. Like, we're halving your stuff. You should be hitting $3 to $4 million revenue. Your $1 million revenue month is such a cooked metric. It doesn't even make sense. Like I can get to that as well and lose money. You know what I mean? You can log and lose money at the beach if I really want to lose money. So it's like, be really, really careful what you're listening to and what you're absorbing. And because there's a realm of like, I can say whatever I want. This is interesting because I've been on both sides of the coin, right? I've been I've been as an employee, I've been in electrical world, I've been an employee and a business owner. In the coaching world, I've been an employee and I've been a business owner, right? Everything is incredibly easy to say from an office. Incredible. I can say whatever the hell I want and there's no parameters. I often think with the coaching industry, I can tell you, here's how to find staff. You need to pay top dollar. And that might be, let's say it's true. So let's say I can actually reset the market across the Gold Coast tomorrow if I wanted to. If I was like, hey, anyone on the Gold Coast, we're attracting talent at 50, 55, you need to pay 60, 65. So all of a sudden, I said that from an office. My two people that I've got in my dojo, so to speak, are now paying 60, 65. That's going to rise the whole market across there. I could ruin companies like tomorrow with misinformation or with like aggressive information from an office. So, and one thing that's unspoken, I saw this a lot when I was an employee back at a company who shan't be named. I saw people come into these dojos, right? And come into the dojo and they're like, you need to charge this much. And they win a job and they're like, yeah, high five and yeah, awesome. And that's cool. I'm not against making money. If you've heard anything, like our slogan is make money. You know what I mean? Like there's our slogan. We're not against it. We like to make money and build wealth. But like what you'll find is when people come in and they might charge too much. And the best relevance is you ordering 2 coffees from the local shop and tapping your card. It was $30. Oh, far out. Like, that's more than I thought. And you do it again. I still think, far out. I might try someone else now. I might try something else now. So it's like, you can get away with charging too much for so long, but not too long. So you might actually be quoting or winning work. You might win 2 or 3 jobs really high, but is that client going to be a repeat client? And also enter the conversation wholesale rates, right? Enter the conversation. If I buy one t-shirt from the local shop in town, I'm paying $100. If I buy 1,000 shirts, I might be paying 50. So it's like it's what you're talking when you tell someone how much to charge. It's such a multi-layered, multifaceted, like you need to know how you get to your break-even rates, and you need to know how to adjust that break-even rate, and you need to have a long-term goal, a long-term vision. You need to understand all this stuff. You need to understand margin. You need to understand the different levers in terms of what you can pull and what you can adjust and what you can change and what you can chop and what you can lose and what you can add to affect that. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like such of it is clickbait. And the whole thing for me can be framed up. I put a post up on Insta. It was yesterday, but I don't know when this pod will come out. But let's just say it's like, I think I framed it. Can you make money at $120 an hour? One of our members will tick past $1 million net profit, charging $105 now. Another one of our members will tick past 600 grand profit with 4 staff members. This is net profit, by the way. Charging $100 now because his labor rate is able to be profitable at a low rate. And another one of our members who have just sort of signed off on he's waiting to close him up now. I'm just looking at this now. This is a consistent result. He is the month of July, revenue 375 grand, net profit 105 grand, 28% net profit. Consistent result. He's charging 125. Bit of a bigger business, but like I just think far out. Like don't buy into the clickbait, don't buy into the hype, don't buy into the propaganda, don't buy into the fear mongering. Don't buy into anyone's stuff unless you've got some facts behind it. And it's not just facts that I won 1 or 2 jobs. It's like those jobs and these staff members. Like, what do you want in a business? You want to retain long-term staff and long-term clients. And that if you can do those 2 things, and make money. If you can do retain staff, retain clients, attract staff, attract clients, get some good quotes out and some good margins, you're cooking. You don't need to take the piss. You don't need to walk around and be like, oh, you can't be profitable at that. Like, who am I to tell someone that they can't be profitable at that? Like, there's a certain mark of where the break-even rate, and the break-even rate for a tradie standard, I'd say standard is $100 an hour of what I see. Best case scenario is $75. Worst case scenario is $125. One thing we haven't even touched on is these morons from the city talking about how much a country person should charge. You know what I mean? Like, you're paying $55 for that labor in the city. You can buy that for $40 across the different towns. So it's like, it just does my actual head in. The ignorance, the ego, the sales tactics. I don't even know what to say. Anyway, that's like it's a big
Yeah.
It's pouring out.
Hold on to it for a while, I can tell. We talk about it most days.
Yeah, I feel like it comes out sometimes. But you know what? I would just ranted.
Yeah, so I think like a summary of it all is that there's the influences that get you to where the cost is need to be known to then be able to be like, how much profit do I want to be making? But not only that, what profit is sustainable, or what charge out price is sustainable in the market that I want to play in. And I think that needs to be understood as well, is that there's different markets that have different, I'm going to say, gears that can be moved within them of tolerances. So some have a larger tolerance, which means essentially you have more room to move in what you want to be charging. Others have less tolerance, which obviously then in turn is often the market where I hear often it's like, these guys must be going broke. Like, how could they be doing that? And it's like, I don't think you understand the market, if I'm being honest. That's where it lands in there. I think that the thing that I think maybe a lot of people don't take into account and sometimes skip over a little bit is and we touched on it before, is the billable hour part of it all. Oh, excuse me. So the number of hours that you're getting in each week, the number of hours that you have available each week, right? 2 different things. The number of hours that you have available versus the number of hours that you're actually getting in. So where is your labor efficiency sitting? Now, you could be killing it on paper in a net profit sense. So individually per job looks amazing. Be like, show me the money, like, where's the money, sort of thing. And it's like, okay, because you're not getting enough jobs in the week to cover your labor side of things. So in turn, you're basically robbing from Peter to give to Paul. So the profits are being given back to cover the time that you haven't worked, essentially. So if you think about it, an 80% labor efficiency is working Monday to Thursday. So that means every Friday is off. And I know there's some people who are going to be like, that sounds amazing, right? And it does sound amazing if you're making money. It doesn't sound that amazing if you're not, but therein lies the problem. And a lot of people who come in and we sit down with them, it's the aha moment. They're like, they're just not getting enough hours in. The other thing that does my head in a little bit is when people go, I can't believe they could be charging that. Like, how do they make money on it? It compound effect, right? So you could be working for insert large type of client here, right? So a client that potentially is contractual, so you're a preferred supplier agreement, you're working with them consistently, they're giving you a lot of work, right? So you may get 5 work orders for the same site. So you turn up, 5 work orders, and in that contract, there's 5 service charges, and it's a minimum time frame on there. Generally speaking, that's how the preferred supplier contract works. There's either both of them and or one of the other at least. So you could have a minimum of 2 hours per job at a rate that, may seem unreasonable to some people. But when you break it down, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be very reasonable. And because that can be a number of reasons, because the serviceability, right? So there's a wider umbrella of staff covering the overheads associated with it. So the cost of operations is lower, quite naturally, because there's a lot of work. So the compound effect, so those 5 jobs take a day that actually equal 10 hours. So I think that also needs to be taken into consideration. I know a lot of people who've based their businesses around that side. So they're not the highest rate by any stretch of the imagination. On paper, I've even seen people like, why would you charge that? But you've got to understand how that market works. And the other thing too is in those markets is that there is it's every minute that you were there is billable. Like, it's just that is just the way it is. It works in that sense. Whereas if you're playing in the residential game, right, there's people with stopwatches there sometimes, generally speaking, the client. It's like, well, no, you're only here for 10 minutes sort of thing. So there's so many factors at play. We could dive into lots of different areas further and further in there. But where I sit on this fundamentally is like, okay, what are the factors at play that create your cost, right? How much margin do you want to be making on your cost for the staff members? But then also what pool do you want to be swimming in? And I think that's really, really important, because you need to know what pool you're swimming in. And the last one on that I want to probably touch on is how sustainable long-term are the pools that you're swimming in going to be? Like, can you swim in that same pool forever and ever, or is it going to be capped out? Or are you going to have to move into different areas which will have an influence on it? Yeah, that's sort of my, I guess, thoughts around.
Yeah, you touched on something before, and you said net profit versus labor efficiency. So to frame that up again, I sat with someone the other day, and their net profit was, I think they were hitting 30, 35%, even 40% net profit, which across like mum and dad work is quite typical, I would say. But if you took that, this is another thing that factors type of work. If you took that net profit margin and applied it to like, a big commercial company, or like $1 million job, or a 500,000 job, or a builder, developer, whatever, like type of recurring work, you're probably going to lose that job because you're going to be too expensive. So there's like different rates for different type of work. Like I would say that's the easiest thing to explain. And that's the other thing. You got to look at like size of business too. If someone's preaching, like you can't achieve a really, really high rate across lots of people. maybe across 2 or 3 people, you can achieve a high rate consistently. If anyone's growing a business, you need different ways to extract work. You need your recurring work, your regular work, your wholesale rates. You need to like really know your numbers back to front. And if you don't understand how to do that, well, we do that. Like that's our physical job. Like that's what we sit with, because everything comes down from the numbers. They are the top of the pyramid scheme, you might even say. So that net profit versus labor efficiency, I've seen people doing really good net profit wise, and they're not even hitting their break-even target for the week. And it's because what they're doing is working. They're just not doing enough of it. And you can reference like any size business for that. Labor efficiency is so huge, but it's just one part of the portion. You know, the hourly rate's huge. It's just one part of the holistic situation. Like you want to be making sure that you're buying labor materials and you're selling it at a decent margin, not just today, not just tomorrow, but every week, every month, every year, like consistently on repeat. That's what you sort of need to be doing. You can't be a one-hit wonder. You can be, but it's going to look really good for that week or that day or that month. And then what happens from there? And this is the whole thing. Like, how many times can you take the piss on an invoice, or how many times can you charge too much or let someone down? Probably 3 times is the max. If you let someone down 3 times, I'll be there Thursday, not there. Thursday, not there. Thursday, not there. They're probably going to start looking somewhere else. If you're too expensive, too consistently, you can expect to get to lose that client, right? And let's face it, some clients you want to lose, you know, so it might not be the end of the world. But net profit versus labor efficiency, absolutely huge. Size of business comes into it. Type of work comes into it. You know, if you're only able to get 4 to 5 billable hours in a day, yes, your rate needs to blow out because you're only able to get 4 or 5 hours in a day. So let's say your daily rate is $1,000 you need to hit, right? Let's say your margin daily rate is $1,000. So 250 times 4 is 1,000. And let's say you only got those 4 hours in across an 8-hour day. If you're on the one site, 125 times 8 is, guess how much? 1,000. So 4 times 250, 1,000. 125 times 8 is also 1,000. Interesting thing here. If you're moving a whole bunch of service work as an electrician, not as a plumber, as an electrician, plumbers generally make a lot of margin across their materials. Their material spend is usually quite higher. As an electrician, you go to a service job and you change a Clipsal Classic double GPO, right? Let's say you put 100% margin on that, you're selling it for $20. you know what I mean? Like your materials move so low on the service. So your $250 an hour or whatever it is actually ceilinged. The materials margin, which would usually be a little bit, is ceilinged because you're not really moving any materials. Across the $125 now, you might be able to get subcontractors in for $70, $75 and boost that margin, that labor margin huge. You might be able to move a whole bunch of materials at a whole bunch of margin that because the job is long, the job is consistent, the job needs materials. It's a large job, needs a lot of stuff, right? Needs a lot of cable tray, a lot of dynavolts, a lot of stuff, like a lot of moving parts, a lot of switchboards, a lot of decent size items because it's a decent size job. So like, you know, I just feel like leveling the whole thing out, you have to know where you sit daily, where you sit weekly, where you sit yearly, where you sit monthly, where you sit every like long term. What's your goals? What's your aspirations? The last thing you want is to go, I think I'll wrap it up with this. The last thing you want to do is go too high and lose the client. And the other last thing you want to do is go too low and lose money. So we know we can't go too high and lose the client, or you might get 1 or 2 jobs of that and then lose the 3rd, 4th, 5th forever. And you can't go too low and lose money because both those things kind of suck. They're almost just as bad as each other. Losing money is arguably worse, I would say. But there's a middle realm. So you can't be bottom 20%, top 20%. If you're middle 60, you want to be the upper percentile of the 60. But, you know, I think when you're talking as an hourly rate, you've missed the boat completely. I think when you're talking in how much do I charge per hour, like outwards, yes, 100% you can talk like that. But inwards, you need to be looking at gross profit, net profit. So it's like outwards, you need to communicate what's actually like, but behind the scenes, you need to look inwards and you need to go turbo on that, because like no one is coming to save you, right? Sparky Coach will save you because we do it for you, but like no one's coming to save you. You're like, if you're losing money, you're not going to have there's not a magic pill to change everything. If you're losing clients, it's not a magic pill to change anything. And this is where the hustle culture comes into it really interestingly. You can hustle as much as you want for work, but if you're hustling for the wrong kind of work, you're going to be the wrong kind of busy. And if you're hustling for the right kind of work, I'd say most of the right kind of work has already the right people in there. So if you're the right person with the right client, keep doing the right thing and you'll keep them. So it's like the last thing you do is the wrong thing and lose the right client, and someone else wanders in there, slithers in there, snake vibes, right? And hey, try my apple, Adam and Eve style, and then they take a bite from someone else's apple. And that was actually pretty good. That was more cost effective than the last apple. So hypothetically speaking, don't lose money, don't lose work, find your realm, reason, market value. Know your numbers back to front, close your weeks, close your months, close your jobs, and find out what works and repeat it.
I like it. It's good. Very good. Enjoy. Have a good day.
Peace.
Catch you next time.
That's a wrap on another podcast. Whatever you're doing, don't be too busy to stop and check if you're making money. And above all else, you know the rules. Be kind. See you soon.